Hey, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. I'm Nick Paro, not your dad, here on Sick of This Shit Publications, joined today for, I think it's our 20th interview now. So, Pete, welcome on a great round number for 20 interviews of intelligent masculinity. Today, we're joined by Pete Dominick from Stand Up with Pete Dominick, longtime comedian, girl dad, and true masculinity men's health advocate. Pete Dominick, welcome. Can you introduce yourself for everyone in the crowd? It's a real honor to have you with us.
It should be, Nick. Really.
Good. This conversation is going to be so much fun.
You and your audience should feel so lucky and fortunate to be graced with my presence. I don't know. I do have a Wikipedia. You'll find that someone hacked into it and said that I started out as a prop comedian, which is a very insulting thing to say to a stand-up, but I respect whoever did that because it's funny. It'll also tell you that I do have an associate's degree, so I hate to kick off by bragging, but I started my career as a stand-up comedian. I did everything I wanted to do in comedy. I headlined all over the country at clubs and colleges. I made a lot of money. I did the Montreal Comedy Festival. I did a whole bunch of TV shows. And then I became a dad and I wanted to get off the road. I wanted to stay home. And you can't be a really great comedian and a good father because you work every weekend and you're gone every weekend. That's when you make the money and all your money. And I realized that. So I actually was able to adapt, be nimble. I've always been that way in my career to be able to make as much money as I can, but also do what I love. When I started out struggling comedian, I was a personal trainer, but I lived right near the gym to make it as easy as I could and do what I love. And now here I am, a new dad living my dream as a comic, and I'm never home. And I'm like, I'd rather be cleaning toilets and stay home than live my dream and be in El Paso on a Thursday. All no disrespect to El Paso, but I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be home. And so I got into being a warm-up comedian, which allowed me to stay in New York City. And I worked on all of the best TV shows eventually, like The Daily Show and The Colbert Report. And at the same time, or just before, I started working in radio, live radio at Sirius XM years ago when it first launched, before it merged with XM, actually. I was on Sirius. And I turned a comedy show into a 3-hour talk show, which talked about important issues like an NPR, like public interest talk show. And that turned into CNN and turned into so much more in my career. But I really did transition kind of slowly out of full-time comedian into kind of activist, comedian, journalist, commentator. And now most of what I do is I host my daily podcast. I talk to the smartest people I can find every single day. And it's an amazing, amazing job. My daughters are 18 and 21. I'm about to be an empty nester. I'm recently separated, well, about 3 years now. And I am through a barrel of kind of real grief and depression and sadness and anxiety. The first time I ever had it in my life. I've just turned 50 and I'm in really a good emotional and mental and physical spot. And that is my intro.
All of that is amazing. Welcome. It's really great to have you. I love the growth and the mindfulness of your career changes. Tuesday, I got to talk to a gentleman named Stephen Atchison. He's a veteran. He's longtime friend and very, very close battle buddy of Christopher Goldsmith. And he was with him when he was at his lowest. And he had a journey too, where he went from like career driven to parental driven and made choices that shifted where he was going so that he could be more with his kids and be more dedicated to his family and as a present father. And I just got out of, well, almost a year ago, just got out of a tech job, like 6 years of tech jobs. And the patriarchal like demand structure of tech is so bad. It's so fucking terrible.
I've heard nightmares about that industry, but I've heard that about the legal world, about the financial world before that, and I just never wanted to and never did get caught up in that. For
You're
me,
so lucky.
yeah, I mean, I made a lot of, smart choices to stay out of that. Not that you can predict that, but I mean, I was in comedy, which is also a pretty, male-driven,
Yeah.
patriarchal, even probably worse than almost any other industry because it's the entertainment industry. There is no HR department at a comedy club where you spend all of your time. So it's just a horrible place. I mean, comedy clubs are places where crimes against women get committed. You can guarantee it, and often by the talent and the owner and the managers and so on, because it's such a power paradigm. So yeah, I've been in that world, and it's definitely wasn't the place for me either. I swam in those waters with those sharks, many of which names have now been outed that and it was really hard going. I had a lot of solidarity with a lot of the female comedians and a lot of the gay comedians, and I spent more time getting closer to them than anyone else.
Well, can you talk on that a little bit before we get into any of the actual interview part? Like we'll get into the actual questions of the interview here in a bit. But I love these intros where we just get to know you and stuff. Can you talk about like that and how it either both positively and negatively impacted your career because you stood with people who were being marginalized just by your actions?
Well, I can say there's no doubt about it that it made my career. I think the person that I chose to be and kind of was raised to be helped me in myriad ways to be successful because the right people, I guess, liked me and the wrong people didn't. And I think that matters. I mean, for me, one of my greatest fears in life has always been to abandon my principles, and we can kind of talk about what those are. I think we should all
Yeah.
have those pretty well spelled out at this point in our lives when you've gone through a whole bunch of religion and philosophy and friendships and relationships and just life and living. I want people, especially men, to come up with a code, a sense of something that they live by, and then not only to speak it but to live it. For me, I tend to gravitate towards like women and gay people or people who are more likely to be marginalized or discriminated against or alienated in the corporate world and in school too. And so if you take out race and gender and you're just looking at, let's say, when I was in school, if I saw a boy who was being bullied, I went over and made friends with that kid. If a new kid came to school, I invited him to sit at the popular kids table. I always was someone who gravitated towards or had, I think, a lot of compassion and empathy for people who were marginalized or bullied. And a lot of that was simply because my older brother was that guy. And a lot of it, he got bullied a lot for being a nonconformist, basically, really, really smart and the most important man in my life for my whole life. But he was bullied and I watched it. I was also the smallest kid in school. So I got bullied for being small, but I did not stand for that at all. Not for 1 second. If someone said something to me, I quickly, when I was 4 or 5 years old, I realized and continued to get better at defending myself from the bully and also making friends with the bully. My dad told me to make friends with the biggest kid in class. So I also always did that. I always punched up, Nick.
Good. You should.
Was making fun of somebody, I went for him every time.
Good. You should. You should always punch up. It's punching down isn't really rewarding in any way. Like you feel like a bully. You feel like an asshole at the end because you are. Like when you punch down, you're the bully.
I was just reminded about this recently because somebody was talking about wedgies.
Yeah.
I had a kid who I was friends with in elementary school, really good friends with. And then, you go your separate ways in middle school, barely even didn't know him that well, but it was a small school, but he knew each other. He hung me up on a hook, a coat hook on a wall in school by my underwear. Like grabbed me
like a friend.
And if that wasn't good enough, put me up on the wall. And everybody had a good laugh. I think including me. I tried to laugh. But it was embarrassing. It was humiliating. It hurt. But he called me that afternoon and apologized And I'll never forget it. I didn't like, he just felt bad. And he set an example for me about what you just said about like punching down doesn't make you feel good. It made him feel so bad. It stuck with him in his conscience. So he called me and apologized. I'll never forget it. I think I've always felt that way too when I have punched down. I'm not saying I haven't done it. I've done all of the things.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's always my aim for sure. And so in the corporate world, the same thing. Like I gravitated towards those. I worked at SiriusXM for 15 years, and it was an amazing, amazing experience to work in corporate media. But I was like 32 when I started, to work in the corporate atmosphere. So it was really a fish out of water. I had no idea what I was doing. I did all kinds of inappropriate things, like with my bosses, and touch things on their desk or just walk in. Like I didn't know any of the protocols of how to act. I came up, as the center of attention and at comedy clubs, and I was on air talent. So I thought I was, big shit walking around. But I learned from the right people. And again, I ended up, going to the women's affinity groups and talking, and I built trust, I guess is the best thing, which is done not by words, but by actions. And so I built a lot of trust through my behaviors. And, that's the reason, a huge reason for my success, a huge reason. And I ended up one argument that they didn't renew my contract. I didn't get fired, but they didn't renew my contract after 15 years and 5 contracts and just better and better opportunity, more and more money with the company. And part of it was for sure that I destroyed my relationships with executives at the company by speaking out against the rehiring of Steve Bannon. That SiriusXM had him, fired him. He left to go run the White House. I shared a studio with Steve Bannon. I saw him every single day. And then one day he wasn't gone. I was like, "Where's Steve Bannon?" And somebody's like, "He turned into a bat and flew out the window because he's a vampire." But he came back. They hired him. The White House fired him. They hired him back. And I and a couple of others were outraged. And it ended up ruining my relationships with 3 executives, and all men. And
I'm pretty sure that was worth it.
It was 100% worth it. I mean, it wasn't the only reason why they didn't renew my contract, but not even the first. But it didn't. A lot of why I had success is because I had good relationships in the company. So I kept having. So when those relationships soured as a result of me standing up for what I believed in, it's very hard to do that in the corporate world, and that's an issue that we all struggle with. When you have a great job, you don't go tell your boss to go to hell, or you don't stand up, even in a polite way, respectful way, to your boss, because you don't want friction. You want to keep that job. And a lot of guys I know have been working for 20, 30, 40 years, but I couldn't look myself in the mirror, and I would have had to abandon my principles. And that's my worst fear.
Reminds me of a time I told my boss, the CEO of our company, that he wasn't present for me as my manager. And that didn't go over quite so well. Like, certain people don't like hearing that, even when it's true. And I didn't feel bad that I said the words. I felt bad about the way I said it, not the words that I said, but like when it's true and you're just calling it out. Like,
well, it's, one way to be a better person and a better leader and a better man at work is to give the people that report to you an opportunity to criticize you. Sit down with them and you give me a performance review, because that way they don't have to build up the courage to hopefully say it in the right way, couch it in a compliment, little small talk, find time. No, a good leader sits down with, when I don't like hierarchy at all. I don't respect it in general. Again, it's earned. Like, I might like the guy that cleans the toilets a lot more than the CEO of the company. And that because he earned my respect in any number of ways. So like hierarchy to me is just a nonsense bullshit paradigm that we create. We follow it though. We do. I follow it, but I also try to break it. And when I am in position of power, I have tried to make sure that the people that work and report to me have the opportunity to criticize me and to give me a performance review, and to set a table as much as I can where I might have more of a title and make a lot more money. We all kind of do a lot of the same jobs. It's a collective in many ways. Now I work alone, so that's not a case, but I do think that that's the best way to carry yourself as a leader, to give people the opportunity to give you criticism, notes, a performance review, a sound check in the business of radio.
Yeah. Well, I would also argue maybe you don't entirely work alone, because you work with your co-hosts and guests and everyone who comes on your show, and you have to build rapport with them every time you meet someone new, and you can easily sour a conversation. Conversations can easily sour, or we can touch on things that are not wanted, unexpectedly, in conversations that make people uncomfortable. Like you and I talking about apologizing wouldn't be an issue. Like if we were to talk about how do you apologize, how have you said I'm wrong and moved on from it. But others, just the idea of apology would be a threat towards them. um,
Yes.
and so how have you navigated that, both personally, professionally, but also as a dad? Because this is part of it too for me, as especially as I'm a parent of two kids, and I want to learn from other dads. You and I've talked about this just a little bit around like your experiences as a girl dad, and a dad who's now about to be an empty nester. Like, how has that shaped all of this too, as you've gone through your adult life?
I think that I've developed a strong sense of self-awareness. I think I probably always had it. It was probably for whatever reason uh, there my whole life, and yet I'm particularly sensitive to other people's feelings, their facial expressions, their energy, and when you're someone like me who spends their whole life trying to make other people laugh, and you tend to develop an acuity for knowing how they're feeling with all of their emotions. And so I think as a result of that, and as a result of, wanting people to like me and even admire me, I've realized that when I screw up, and I do, and I could give you an apology from every week at work or with my daughters, or certainly every year with my daughters, with my ex-wife, who I have an awesome relationship with. But I think that Kamala Harris said, when Jimmy Carter died at his memorial, she said about him that he was the strongest type of man, because people don't measure, I'm paraphrasing, don't measure strength always this way, but there is a strength in decency. And so acting in a decent way, being self-aware about how you're acting and how you're receiving, and certainly how you're giving in any relationship, is really important. Am I talking too much? Am I not listening enough? But I could tell you about apologies for the rest of our conversation. I'll just point to the fact that I am still apologizing to my daughters today. I went skiing with my 21-year-old and her boyfriend, and I told her to take it easy. She was going too hard. She's a really good skier, and she was just going way too hard. And I criticized her. I gave her, I told her not to do that, basically. Later on, she got really upset with me. It's like, you're talking to me, you're talking down to me in front of my boyfriend. And she was absolutely right. And I don't like when my dad did that to me. And I just gave her a full-throated apology to her face. Then again, later in a text message, I made sure not to defend myself in any way, like be defensive. I apologize, but I was worried your legs were going to get burnt out by the end of the day. Going so hard, skiing so hard, and rough conditions. None of that. Apologize fully without defending yourself. Do it in such a way that it is definitely sincere, and you will build every relationship. And there is a huge, I think people view that as strength, because it's being decent. And that is so much stronger in my mind than someone who doesn't do that, or someone that doesn't have that as a guiding principle and practice in their life. To be conciliatory, to apologize, and to mean it is a hard thing to do. But if you do it, you're a better person, certainly a stronger man.
You are going to get along so well with Walter Ryan. You doubt it. One of the things that Walter if you guys didn't know, Pete and I have talked once before this, but we like this is going to be one of the more just laid back starting of the days that we've had. But also this week has just been fucking amazing for things about like being able to relax our bodies down and cool our minds while we're talking about some shitty topics sometimes, because there's some heavy shit going on and I won't lie about any of that. But you guys know me, I keep my head level. But this is going to be just such a blast. We haven't even gotten into our conversation yet. One of the things, though, that Walter once said in his Intelligent Masculinity interview was the most important thing you can do is an unqualified apology. And you just said the exact same words. Like the thing that's building and restoring and creating relationships of intelligence where they suck less, as I started saying. My new catchphrase is sort of just suck less. We do have water bottles available, 32-ounce steel water bottles with sippy lids for just suck less. With Sick of This Shit publications, get your own. There's a QR code in the top corner if you all want to. But like, it's the idea of just sucking less. Like, you're just being willing to say I'm sorry and accept the consequences of the actions.
There's just three addendum to all of what you just said about why apologizing matters. I just, as you're talking, I'm like, why did I have to apologize so much in my life, especially in my marriage, and with my kids? Why was I always apologizing? And because one of my real weaknesses around my emotional behavior has been to be sensitive and to take things the wrong way, to take them too seriously, to get hurt too deep. Specifically in marriage counseling, I learned these three important lessons, and I still struggle with them all the time, but I am so much better person as a result of at least knowing them, much less recognizing them part of the time, most of the time maybe. They're this. Don't take things personally, and I'll come right back to that. Don't make assumptions, and don't get defensive. I had to unpack what those meant because I don't like therapy talk. And so I needed specific examples of what that meant. But specifically, when the therapist said, don't take things personally, I really rejected that. I'm like, well, she insulted my character. She called me a name in a vile way. How am I not supposed to take that personally? And it took me a while to kind of understand what that meant and to understand that often it's more about the person saying it than you. And not always, but certainly I had to really learn how to manage the moment between stimulus and response so that I didn't take things personally, didn't make assumptions, and didn't get defensive, because that was certainly my pattern. And it was my ex-wife's pattern too. We were very similar that way, but it's always been a problem for me. So I ended up apologizing a lot because I made an assumption about what somebody was thinking or saying. I was projecting my own insecurities, or because I had to get defensive and defend myself and got really upset, or because someone said something really mean or hurtful and I took it very personally and got very hurt by it and had to run out in my shed outside and cry.
Yes. I've had to go through years of therapy too. And so I wrote a question down. Was it also that you maybe as a man who sometimes didn't have the words, is it also maybe because were you ever at a point where you just didn't have the right words to express the emotions you were feeling, and you were feeling really hard and you just didn't know how to describe it properly?
I mean, sure, but honestly, not that much. I think that is probably the most common problem for people, certainly for kids, but for adults and especially for men who don't know how to name their emotions. But because I was so therapied and because I was so into reading about philosophy and psychology, I had all the words. My problem, Nick, honestly, was not that. It was I had too many words. I talked too much. I'm too good at talking. I'm a talk show host and a comedian. I can argue with anyone about anything and be right. And I had to learn I'd rather be happy than right in a lot of those situations. But I had too many words. And I still get myself into trouble because I know exactly what to say to defend myself, to win the argument. I am silver-tongued, and you do not want to be on the other end, because I trained myself on stage to defend myself against hecklers, and before that against bullies, and before that, I always was that guy. And I mean, I've gotten punched at least 3 times in my life as a result of that. In all 3 of those fights, I didn't throw any punches. I just got knocked clean out because of it. Well, once knocked clean out. Another one, I didn't go down, Nick.
Didn't go down.
Well, in that one, I wasn't running my mouth. I was asking a guy. I was being a gentleman. I was asking a guy to stop touching this woman at a bar, and things hadn't escalated, but he was Scottish, and he he punched me immediately. I was like, "Hey, man, I think you've had a little bit too much to drink," and he just punched
I think it was the too much to drink part, and not he probably would have been like, I think the response may have been different had you led with, "Hey, man, you need to back off this lady," and then you've had too much to drink. Maybe that would have resulted in not a punch.
I think I was always getting punched that day.
Always getting punched on that.
I do appreciate the alternative.
Sometimes there's positive alternatives that could have happened.
I'm always for de-escalation, but usually it's after I escalated it.
Yeah, no, I think we've all been there. So welcome everyone. It's Intelligent Masculinity as we get about a half an hour into the show ish. We started a couple minutes late, so y'all are still here on time with us. We are joined. I'm Nick Paro, not your dad. This is Sick of This Shit Publications. We are here on Sick of This Shit Pub, as well as cross streaming on Banner and Backbone. We're on Substack, YouTube, Twitch, and today for the first time, TikTok. So hey, if you're on TikTok with us, what's up, y'all? I haven't posted like this before, and so we'll see how it goes. What's up, TikTokverse? And we're having a great conversation so far today on Intelligent Masculinity, where I'm joined by comedian, talk show host, girl dad, advocate Pete Dominick, and I've got some questions for him as we get into the, I guess, real interview part of all of this. Is, as everybody knows, or if you don't know, we've got 5 overall questions. The first 4.5, because there's really a 2-part first question. First 4.5 questions are our more serious side, and then our final questions is a lightning round. Our final question number 5 is 4 questions of a lightning round where we shift for a little bit more whimsical, and we go into the Mulans, I'll make a man out of you, chorus lines, and ask some fun questions. So Pete, let's get into it a little bit. This is going to be fun. So you mentioned it at the beginning about your brother. And so I really want to hear all about this. Is who has been one of the most influential masculine figures in your life, and why?
Well, obviously my dad, but my brother is the one who kind of educated me about moral philosophy and helped create one for me at a very kind of young age, at probably the most important time, 12, 13, 14, my adolescence. My brother was radicalized, like a lot of people, by both music and literature. So a combination of punk rock and Noam Chomsky at a young age really changed him. He was also a writer. He's always writing. And I guess the shortest version of it, the 2 things that he identified or cared a lot about was a certain kind of anti-feminism. I'm sorry, anti-sexism, but like a new age kind of feminism for men. How to treat women is how my brother taught me at a young age, and kind of combated a lot of what culture was teaching me. And it was, again, through literature and through music that he learned it. But also, he really started to unwind religion at a young age. My brother and I both were kind of raised Catholic. My parents were not. My mom was not religious at all. My dad was barely. But we went to church and we went to religious education. And my brother started questioning that when he was like 9. He's like, I'm out of here. This is ridiculous. And so that made me question all of those teachings too, but also anti-racism. So my brother was an anti-sexist and an anti-racist as a young age. I don't think that terminology existed as much then. We certainly didn't use it, but he was reading and listening to revolutionaries, and they were instructing him in his behavior. And what it really led him to be is a nonconformist. So my brother was a skater, a druggie. That's what we called them at that age. Had weird hair and clothes. That guy. And
like a
so,
mohawk and spiky things on his shoulders and stuff like that.
Yeah, might as well.
Might as well.
Combat boots. And so he was ridiculed and bullied. I asked him not too long ago why he didn't just act, quote, normal to make life easier. And he said something about like his worst fear was to be unoriginal, to be like everybody else. So even with all of the pain, I fell in and conformed, and I was a jock, and I was well-liked kid and everything. But I had my brother as my older brother. I watched what he went through and what he believed. And so he, at that young age, really taught me what kind of person I wanted to be, certainly when it came to gender and race. And I mean, obviously I built on that, and I'm not acting like I was always a virtuous man or so on. I mean, my conscience is clear, but I've made plenty of mistakes. I've made plenty of sexist remarks and done plenty of sexist things, and certainly bigoted and racist views and things. And so often we think about, have I ever like done something to a black person? I'm like, no, maybe I haven't that I can think of at the top. But I certainly did something to like this Hispanic guy, or had a thought. Like, all of that is about awareness and bias and trying to unlearn that. And my brother taught me kind of how to check myself and who to read and what to read and listen to at a very young age. And it just changed me for my whole life. I also didn't drink alcohol in high school because my brother was an addict at that point, and we had to do an intervention on him, and he went to rehab, and it was a very dramatic thing in my life. And I just chose not to do that. And that really matured me at a time when everybody else was drinking. Like, if you don't drink, you accidentally mature in a way that they don't, because it often, stunts your growth. And I just saw things I think maybe other people didn't see as a result. I mean, I certainly started drinking later in life and smoking pot and everything. I was like 22, 23, but not during those, important years. So that's a lot of it.
So we have a question from the audience: is where did you grow up?
Syracuse.
Syracuse. Okay. I love Syracuse. I think we talked about this, as I wanted to go to college at Syracuse for the music business program when they first started offering it. The first
communication school. I grew up, though, just to be clear, the person probably asking to get more specific, like I grew up outside Syracuse in kind of a farm town where when trout season opened, half the boys weren't in school that day. So hunting and fishing and being on the lakes, and it was almost entirely white, almost entirely Christian. At that point, it was the 80s, so no one was gay out. So it was very homogenous, is maybe why that person's asking. But yeah, so I couldn't wait to get out of there, and curiosity drove me to wanting to be around diverse group of people. So college, then New York City.
Yeah, that's really important too. Is like, I grew up in Vermont, and it was probably whiter and less diverse, and that's hard to say because Syracuse is fairly non-diverse in a lot of ways. At least when I was growing up. I didn't go to school there, but I was going to go, or I tried to go. I wanted to eventually broadcast for the basketball team. But I never did. I always thought I had a voice for radio. And so I wanted to, but I never did. And I get to now, just in my own way. So that's pretty awesome. Back when the team didn't suck.
Wow.
It's been a few years.
Growing up in Syracuse, we didn't have a pro team, and Syracuse University sports were, for me, my sport was lacrosse. So I grew up like worshiping those lacrosse players. My dream was to play in the Syracuse lacrosse team. That dream lasted about like an hour. I knew where I stood, in size and skill, but also I had no good grade. This day of high school, I didn't work hard. And but every day was an audience, and every day there were girls, and every day I could get laughs, and I loved it. I did not miss one day of all 4 years of high school for illness or any other reason, because I loved going.
Nice. Yeah. Hey. Oh yeah, I had to mute for a second. My dog is going off in the background. He's dog belling. It's garbage day, so he's being a jerk. Um, I've got 3 dogs, and only one of them kind of sucks. We laugh at him that he's got 2 brain cells, and only one of them works in his head. The other's in his tail, and it hits everything.
That sounds good. We had a dog in July, and she passed away, and it sucks. I never had a dog my whole life. I had cats growing up, but our family dog that we got when my daughter were 5 and 7 got kidney disease and died, and I had to like take care of her the last 3 weeks of her life because my daughters were with my ex-wife on vacation, and it was another like in a series of setbacks for me over a few years period. I had to develop all the resilience that I did not have because I had such a kind of a charmed life, childhood, and then career. It wasn't easy. I worked really hard. I did really well, but I lost my job. I lost my wife, and I lost my dog within like 3 years, and a lot of other things in between. My dad's health took a turn, but my parents are still, my mom's turning 80 today, doing great, although they had a terrible car accident 2 months ago. It's been a lot in a short period of time. And you would wish that kind of adversity on people, but I have developed a lot of resilience that I didn't have. And that all came out of your dog barking.
I'm here for you. I'm here for you. So moving on to the second half of our question, before we get too off track on because we could go down all the rabbit holes.
When I said I lost my wife, she left me. She didn't die, by the way. I just realized that sounded.
I didn't even. It just went woof.
Oh, good. I hope nobody thinks that she's doing good. I just talked to her.
I was going to say you did mention a couple times that you have a really good relationship with your ex-wife, which I have heard because my parents are stable. My relationship is stable, but I've heard from folks that I know who and like have grown up around that like having stable relationship where even if you're not married anymore, the stable relationship part of it is the most important part, and it's better to sometimes not be married for some folks. How has that impacted you a little bit in like being a dad, or a lot of it in being a dad, especially with late teenage to early adult children?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, but I do think it's a different answer for everyone, obviously, but certainly for people whose kids are younger. And so we got separated, the shortest version, but we stayed living together because I was not going to leave my daughters. My older daughter was a senior in high school. My younger daughter, I guess, was a sophomore. I basically stayed in the house until my daughter got her license, and then didn't literally need me date every day because I would drive her to school and pick her up, and mainly because I just loved being with her in the car for that moment, even if we didn't talk. That was always something I wanted to do. Once she got her license, I got my own place 10 minutes away. And the answer to your question is, how has it been? It hasn't really affected my older daughter, my younger daughter, who's still home, too much. And my older daughter, not at all, because she's living her life and she doesn't live at home, and she's really healthy and in mind and body and doing great. But I guess if anything, the fact that we still talk and hang out and have dinner together and communicate really well about our daughters and about our common interests, you got to do anything you can to make it work. And even if you feel that your spouse was in the wrong entirely, which is rare, but even if, you say she broke the trust, she had an affair, so you want to blame it all on her, it's always a lot more complex than that. But no matter what the reason, again, my older brother told me when my ex-wife told me she wanted to get separated, I was really mad. I was mad. I felt rejected. I wanted to keep trying. I didn't want to give up. But my brother told me, you have to model a healthy breakup because your girls are watching. And if you burn her down, if you call her names, disrespect her, make threats, are not fair in the negotiations, they will see that. They will be broken up with, likely, my daughters, and they need to see a healthy breakup, whatever that looks like. And I'm so glad he told me that, because I definitely wouldn't have thought of it that way about how I always thought about how my daughters were watching me. And I knew that my behavior and my actions mattered a lot more than my words, and my presence mattered a lot more than anything else. But I had to do that. It was really hard because she did a lot of things that I would just say, because we're talking publicly, I felt like we're unfair. And so I wanted to fight back, but I think I did throughout the marriage, but through the separation, I didn't. I really conceded a lot, and I'm so glad that I did. Ego is the enemy. Men cannot be dumped after 25 years. It can't possibly be my fault. Well, it was my fault in a lot of ways. I take responsibility for a lot of my kind of emotional reactions and problems that we had. And I had to do that. I had to do it for my daughters. I had to do it for myself, my own interests. And the fact is, where we're at now is such a really healthy place that it makes life so much easier and less stressful, because we can talk and communicate and get along without worrying about any number of issues that couples who have ugly breakups and divorces do.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. And I love that your brothers set another model for you to help follow. And you took one of the things I think I've really found through all of these discussions is if you exhibit any sort of intelligent masculinity, it's better humaning just in general. It's the idea of you pick up the cues that other people leave for you.
Yes.
If they're, especially the ones that are very obvious cues, and you just take them. And it's being able to do the thing without having to be asked to do it. And
I think it's hard sometimes for people to have those right people in their life. So I think sometimes you could take them from culture, you could take them from literature, you could take them from art, but I've definitely surrounded myself my entire life by people who are better than me, both men and women. And I take those cues all the time because they're in my life. So I always highly recommend that people recruit friends, friends, good people who are better than you, and in a lot of different ways, and take those cues. I like the way you said that, Nick.
Thanks. And I like how you said recruit friends. That's something that we've talked about on this series before, is having friends around you on purpose, and especially those that you can cry around. Okay. Before we get too far down this rabbit hole, let me ask the actual second part of the question, because we're behind on question time, and I don't want to rush you through too many answers, but I know we have answered some of the questions already in some ways. But this one I want to get a real definitive answer on, because masculinity I've learned is a whole ass person. So you have to have from what we consider masculine end to also the feminine end to be a whole complete person is how you can be masculine. And so who has been one of the most influential feminine figures in your life?
I mean, there are so many that are people that whose names obviously you wouldn't know. And then there are plenty who we all know that, public people, obviously scholars, journalists, and even politicians, actors and artists. In my life, I've had women at every stage that I've recruited for friendship, that I could depend on their advice, their moral clarity, and their role modeling their own choices and their own behavior. I guess I accidentally fell in with, it wasn't really an accident. I certainly gravitated towards people of color at college. And a lot of it was because of humor. So I started hanging around with all these black guys. As a result of that, I ended up becoming friends with a kind of cohort, a clique of black women at college, at this little junior college that I went to, where there wasn't a lot of people of color. And I ate a lot of meals with them, and I spent a lot of time just bullshitting with them and hanging out with them. And I don't want to generalize about black women, but I will say that it was a really important time in my life and experience to be around them and to have intimate, and I don't mean sexual, but intimate friendships with them. One of them was my roommate's girlfriend, and was very close with her and others. I recently got together with them last summer for our 50th, and it was wonderful.
I
So
love
that
that.
was one thing in college, like just kind of it's just not common, I think, that, a white guy like me would fall in with and have the type of relationship, trusting, intimate relationship I had with several women of color who you just didn't have much in common for a lot of different reasons, obviously, that people can make assumptions about and probably be right. But later in life, it became, people who were good at what I wanted to be. So when it came to women in comedy, I was a comedian named Jessica Curson, who I was really good friends with, Judy Gold, who I became really good friends with, and several other like women whose names you wouldn't know in comedy that really set a standard. Laurie Kilmartin is still one of them. And then when it came to media, there were just so many women, both executives, but mostly on-air talent, who I became really good friends with. And to this day, one of my closest friends. I mean, I don't know if I want to name everybody and go through every single woman in broadcasting that people would know, and I don't want to name drop, but there's a lot of just strong, independent, talented women who are also on air hosts and journalists and TV and radio and so on that I just think have overcome so much more than I had to, and so I just sponge off of all of their talent. And specifically, I guess one great example is Laura Coates. She's on CNN now. She hosts the 11 o'clock hour in CNN. She's used to work at the Department of Justice. She became a regular guest of mine on my radio show. And then I had her start hosting when I was on vacation or out. And she went from a legal career to a kind of legal commentary analyst in television and radio. And now she's a big deal. She's written a book and knows everybody.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And there's just, I mean, I could keep go on and on, but so many women, I wish I could just name all of the qualities. It might be more helpful, but I think they have had to overcome a lot more than I did. And watching them navigate through these waters that are dominated by all the worst kind of men, which are all waters that have men in them. That
Jesse specifically.
What's that?
Jesse specifically.
Yeah.
Of the waters.
Sure.
He's an asshole.
I mean, I confronted him once. He used to do these, what do they call, guerrilla interviews? You walk up to somebody and just start firing questions at them. The person's like, what do you? So I did that to him and asked him to give me the names of the men who died in combat who he'd been exploiting to get ratings, and to divide people. And I had a microphone in his face and he couldn't name them, obviously.
That sounds about right for him. He's an asshole. And I don't like him. I don't think anybody in my audience does either. There
are people in politics and media and in life who have no clear moral principles at all. And they are hollow barrels. J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and Jesse Waters are three to name that are really easy because these are people, well, certainly J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio and so many others who said that Trump was a Hitler.
Yeah.
And who hated him. He's the worst thing in the world. So many quotes, and now they work with him, but they don't have principles. The only pursuit is of power, and that's the weakest man, and also the most uninteresting man. It's also the most threatening man. But there's so many that don't have any moral clarity, any set of principles, any code that they live by at all. They just go wherever they need to go, hurt whoever they need to hurt to get and maintain power, and it's obviously the problem that has plagued humanity from the beginning.
So on the flip side of that is this intelligent masculinity discussion. And so how would you define, if you were to define intelligent masculinity for yourself, for others, how would you define it?
I think going back to what I kind of keep repeating, which is to have a core set of principles that you believe and that you pursue every day. And it doesn't mean that you're going to succeed. It doesn't mean you're not going to have vices. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be a hypocrite. But the fact that you have a working set of principles wherever they come from. Let's call it all philosophy, because religion is philosophy. And so wherever your moral clarity is derived from, whatever code and set of rules you've come up with, if you have that, we have to start there, I think, to be an intelligent man. And to get there has to come and continue to be because of the questions that you're asking. To me, intelligence is best defined by your curiosity and the questions you ask. Because if you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. And if you keep asking questions, you keep getting answers and you keep growing. But for me, I guess the shortest way to say what this intelligence masculinity is to wake up every day knowing it's a new day and I can not be encumbered with my old nonsense. I have the opportunity to make new choices today, to be in the present, but to get, for me, I get a profound sense of joy and gladness and peace of mind, which is a huge thing for this day and age to find. I get that with having a sense of living my life with wisdom and virtue. So by the set of principles, that to me is intelligent masculinity. And to have compassion every day for both others, obviously, and myself, and not beat myself up and berate myself, as well as understand and have a sense of justice and making sure I do all I can to protect people who need my protecting. And I do think that there are plenty. I mean, one good example is, even if I am a strong, smart father and I love my child, if my child identifies as gay or now as trans, I might not want to go out and publicly defend my child at the school board meeting, because now I'm outing my child. I can protect my child in as many ways as I can, but me coming out publicly is announcing this is who my kid is. And I knew that was an issue with a family in my school. So I took it upon myself, because my daughters identify as heterosexual, cisgender. And I took it upon myself to make sure that myself and others, were advocating for that child and her family. And I think that is a really important way for us to try to protect other people. And a lot of times in this day and age still, women have a hard time and shouldn't necessarily always have to be, or really ever, standing up to any kind of, there's just so many different people that we've got. I was going to say law enforcement, but I'm thinking of the Board of Education in my mind, or the superintendent of schools, or the president, whoever it might be. We have to show up and do everything we can to protect marginalized communities. And obviously women can protect themselves, and they protected me over and over. And I've learned a lot from them, but I always want to stand toe to toe, if not putting my body between, the way that Alex Preddy and Renee Good did.
I think that's incredible. Is using either the privilege or the position that you have to support others, and to be there for others, and when they can't do it themselves, to be a voice that can speak, or in a way that can help them from having to out their child. Especially nowadays, if you can be there for a friend or someone in the community that has a child that they don't want to out, then be there, be that person, because you're in a privileged position. It's not your kid. You don't have to say whose kid it is. You can just talk in generalities that make it not obvious, but you can defend somebody without them asking you to. In this case, you don't have to be asked to do the right thing.
It's also proven over and over that we are the problem, so we need to be the solution. And people can disagree intelligently with that, but I think, as a straight white man who's been afforded every opportunity in my life, and this is certainly what I believe has been the case, and I want to be clear, it doesn't mean that straight white men don't suffer. We suffer terribly. We are most likely to take our lives And I think part of that is because we don't have resilience. And when life gets hard, we give up easier, unfortunately. And I feel nothing but compassion for anybody who's been there, including my own brother-in-law. I mean, who took his life. I mean, like, it is a huge problem. So I don't want to dismiss white male, straight male suffering, or white suffering, or male suffering. I'm not dismissing it. What I'm saying is it's different and it's unique to a certain extent, but it's not systemic the way that the suffering and the setbacks and the adversity that women and other marginalized communities, Black and brown people, LGBT people, Jewish people who don't, you can't necessarily see, identify, but like a non-Jewish person has to do the right thing in this case. And we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And every moral philosopher stated this, including, Dr. King and everybody else. So we're the most effective ones in a text chat. I was in a text chat with 19 of my high school buddies, all quote straight white guys. And when one guy starts talking nonsense, if someone doesn't jump in and confront him, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. Then you are just as bad as they are. If you're hiding sexual abuse, you're worse than the abuser. That might be a controversial view, but I don't think it is. And so I live by that idea. And so we're the problem. We have to be the solution. Bottom line is white guys, white straight guys especially, have to stand up to other white straight guys to show them that they're wrong. If you believe that, and I believe it, I believe that the marginalization of all these groups has come at the hands of powerful white men over and over. We live in a white supremacist country. We always have. And it's patriarchal. Women's suffrage movement, like this, look into history. There's more than enough data. Sometimes I think we feel like we're being gaslighted into be questioning our own history, but we don't need to be. And by the way, I don't feel any guilt. This isn't about guilt. Let's just clear that up for anybody that wants to say, oh, you have so much white guilt. No, I don't. I understand history. I understand my privilege and opportunity that I had in my life. And I would feel guilt if I didn't do anything with and about it. That's where my guilt would be. I would feel guilt if I abandoned my principles. That's where guilt would come in for me. I don't feel guilty because I'm in this beautiful vessel. Who would feel guilty looking as good as I do?
I wouldn't. I mean, you look pretty good. I wouldn't have guessed you were 50 either.
See, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm here for you again.
Yesterday I was running and an older man was walking towards me. And for the first time ever, someone clapped. He slow clapped me, Nick. Like, because of my white beard, you wouldn't notice my body. I'm out there running. He was like, well done, grasshopper.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? I'm officially old. Clapping?
God, did it make you feel good or bad?
It made me feel both.
Yeah, I've never been slow clapped running, but I also don't get caught running very often.
Well, listen, the white beard and the running juxtaposition was this guy he didn't know what he was doing, but he was like, well done, sea captain.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. And all of this too is like, you answered the next question in so many ways at this point, was how do you model these types of intelligent masculinity in your own life? And you're talking about the ways that you stand up, that you actively do things, and you actively care about what it means to just be a better person and be a person who thinks forward and wants to grow. And for me, going back to like what the definition of intelligent masculinity is, it's more of a guardrail on what it means to how we should view our actions from. It's the refusal to outsource accountability onto others and the discipline to live with the consequences of our values and actions. And I think you're showing that example in what it looks like to live with the values, with your consequences and actions and your values. And you keep saying it over and over again, is you have a set of values and principles that you believe in, and you just stand up to them and you just live for them. And it's not hard. It is hard to do at points because it's not the easy solution, but it's not hard to do because it's who you are and not and who you strive to be, not what you pretend to be.
It can be hard to do because you can marginalize yourself and limit your own opportunities to make money, to have friends, to move forward. And I think that's true. And I think sometimes we measure our own happiness and levels of contentment by the wrong things. And so to me, I just don't define wealth or the pursuit of wealth as success. I define wealth as the amount of time I have with people that I love, and hopefully they love me. That's it. So I want to, in doing the things I want to do, not how much money, I have or how much material wealth I have. But I just also want to say, like, I don't want to come off on your show and people don't know me in any way as being original with my views here. I try to be original in terms of the anecdotes I tell you about how these views have played out in my life and how these behaviors have animated me in, different times and different things I've done and said. But this stuff is like Buddhism and Stoicism. It's Marcus Aurelius and Pema Chodron for me. It's the four cardinal virtues of Stoicism are wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. And so that's 2,000 years old. So I just read Ryan Holiday and Marcus Aurelius and the Buddha and Pema Chodron, and all of my stuff comes from that. But I also gravitate towards people who believe in those things or something similar, and I watch them live their lives. And one guy I didn't mention is a big influence, but I have a friend, my closest friend locally is 15 years older than me. He's a pediatrician, and he's just this amazing guy. His name is Ken Zatz. He's a doctor, my daughter's doctor. And I befriended him when I lost my health insurance because I thought that would be smart, Nick. Now, that's not why. We're always friends. But and we hike every week. And he's the one who taught me that so many things through his own experience, through his own jokes and wisdom and life and experience. But he talked to me about Pema Chodron's book, When Things Fall Apart, it's called. And I said to him, what if things don't fall apart? And he stopped on the trail we were hiking on. He looked back at me with all his wisdom and years. He said, oh, Pete, things always fall apart.
They always do. They always. Oh, God, I love that. Man, this has been so much fun, Pete. Thank you. Thank you for this. And I like, you'll enjoy when you can get a chance to come on with us for the Diogenes Club. That's sort of where we get the reference from. Is Diogenes was a Greek philosopher who used to walk around with a lantern in his hand asking, where are the men? He was a bit of an eccentric, but at least he asked the question. And he would walk around the town square with a lantern in men's faces in broad daylight and go, where are the men? And challenge them on who they are. And one of those things, I think, in one of the ways we challenge ourselves nowadays is purposeful self-reflection and self-evaluation. And is there a tool that you use in your toolbox of emotional literacy and maturity? How do you self-reflect and self-evaluate? If you do, and what would you recommend, or what is your favorite tool that you could leave as a takeaway for folks in the audience?
Well, I have a practice that I try to do every day, and it animates me throughout the day. I don't do all of these things every day, but I do most of them. But I try to, 20 minutes a piece is the goal. Meditate for 20 minutes, journal for 20 minutes, exercise for 20 minutes. But reading is a really important thing. I have a reading that I select every day. It's usually some kind of Stoic or Buddhist philosophy, but it could be any other number of kind of psychological or philosophical books about anything from trauma to addiction to radical acceptance, loving kindness, to codependence, anything. And also physical, like I'll read about nutrition and exercise and the latest trends, whatever. But I read every day. I try to read every day. I try to journal every day, and I try to meditate every day. And I also try to exercise, cardio, and or at least get outside. Like last night, I didn't get to do anything all day, exercise-wise. So around dinner, I went out and took like a 3-mile walk, and it made a huge difference. So every day, I try to do those 4 things: exercise, journal, meditate, and read. And that's how I self-reflect. That's how I get through the day. That's how I beat back the demons and the anxiety and the depression. That's how I manage to do my work every day, which is knowing all the bad things in the world, because I do a news segment every day and have a daily podcast. So it's like I have to have this practice so that I don't lose it every day on myself, on other people, inside of me. And it really, really works to have this type of routine. The meditation matters so much because the meditation simply helps you to recognize the thoughts you're thinking during the day. It's that easy. And would you rather spend 2 minutes or 20 minutes ruminating, perseverating over something that may or may not happen, by the way? Probably won't.
Mhm.
And so my hardest issue is kind of, existential dread, obviously, death, my own morality. But the more realistic and imminent one is money. Like a lot of people, I worry a lot about that and keeping my work going. And I have my meditation practice helps me recognize when I'm thinking those thoughts in the day. And then I'm able to recognize it, say hi to it, wave to it, and then put it in a bubble and blow it away and go do something with my hands. And that might be the next thing. Journaling, reading, might be exercising, or just getting back to my work. It also often is when I'm really having a hard time, and I do this a lot, is I reach out to somebody else to see if I can help them with something. I reach out to a friend I haven't talked to. I reach out to somebody who I know is ill, and it makes me feel better too, just to show up for them. It makes me feel immensely better. I didn't used to do that until I needed to reach out for help. And a very smart man, mentor of mine named Tom Shadyac, film director, writer, speaker, great guy. I reached out to him for help, and he said, have you been asking, for help? It was after I lost my job. I go, no, I don't like doing that. He goes, why not? Don't you help people all the time? Don't you mentor people all the time? I go, yeah, I do, but I haven't really needed to. And he goes, well, why do you do that? I go, I don't know. It makes me feel good to help other people, to mentor other people, to be a role model for other people. And he goes, well, why would you take that feeling from other people?
Selfish bastard.
Ate my balls on it. I was like, oh man, my ego was too much. And so as soon as he said that, I realized it. And then I gave that opportunity to people, and man, did they come through. And I can remember who I called that day and what they said. And it was a really important lesson.
That's really awesome. I love that. I know I interjected that selfish bastard in there, but it's kind of that thing is like, it is selfish for us to not ask for help. If we enjoy giving help to others, why wouldn't others also enjoy giving help to us or just anybody else? And maybe we are the person that receives that help.
You don't want to look weak or vulnerable by asking for help. And that's why you don't do it. That's why men generally don't do it. I don't want to look weak. Yeah. I don't want to look like I need help. And that is being weak. You're actually weak for not reaching out. Like, you think about the most rugged Navy SEAL who saw combat and lost friends when their helicopter went down and they drowned in the Tigris River. I'm thinking of someone I know specifically. I know a lot of veterans. I've worked with veterans for years. And this guy had what was called moral injury. Every day he lived with guilt, thinking he couldn't save these guys. And he finally got help. I mean, he was suicidal. He went back and forth with alcohol and terrible. But he couldn't ask for help. And it's just interesting that he did that job. That was his life, was to be a special forces operator. But the hardest thing for him was to ask for help, not be in combat, not the loss. And once he did, he became a much stronger man, in my opinion. And I think that's just a really good example. Combat vets, men who struggle and so often end up being either addicted or losing their family, divorce, or worst case scenario, taking their own lives or somebody else's. They're often homicidal, as we know, as well. And it's because you were so weak you couldn't reach out for help. That's a sign of strength. We just need to redefine strength, and it's not hard to do, and it's not like virtuous or enlightened to do. It's, again, 2,000 years old, this stuff.
Yeah, we just need to pick up on the cues that have been left for us and take them and use them for once. Like, we've been told what people need or what could be of help from men to do for ourselves. We just may as well finally fucking do them. And as a friend in our chat says, neurodivergent hodgepodge is genuine is more important than original. Going back to one of your earlier points was you're not really doing original, and everything you're doing isn't always the masculinity that you're doing isn't original. But it's genuine, and I think that's really important.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. And thanks, Neuro, for adding that to our conversation. I'm glad I remembered to go back to that because that was a really important point. It also brings up our final set of questions, which is our lightning round of our more whimsical side, our Mulans, I'll make a man out of you segment, where this is really the genuine section of like sort of these don't have to be original answers. There's no wrong answer in any of these answers either. But just be yourself, be genuine, be what you think. Because I was a choir kid in high school, things like that. And I went to school for music originally. And we sang this song all the freaking time. It was fantastic. We love this song because it's the Let's Go Girls for teenage boys, to like college age boys, or men. And I took some good lessons from it, not just on the physical side, because that's what it is about, but on the emotional and the intelligence side. So our lightning round for you as we round out the final main segment of the intelligent masculinity discussion today is, what does it mean to be as swift as a coursing river?
Overcoming your self every day, overcoming yourself, overcoming your problems. To be swift is to be able to be nimble and to be able to move past something that's holding you back. And if you can't do that, you get stuck. That's how I see that. And I think about like a creek with a bunch of rocks in it and the water going over and around the rocks like that. I like to watch that and think about my own problems and think of each rock as my problem and me as the water, and going over and in between them and not letting them hold me back. It doesn't mean that I'm ignoring them. It doesn't mean that I'm not working on them. It means I'm not getting stuck, because you can get stuck and you can be there for a long time, but to be swift is to get past being stuck. How is that?
I love it.
From my ass.
You can be the water rather than the log. Boiling that down. I like it. I like it. Next question. How do you embody the force of a great typhoon?
I love it so much. I think that trying to make sure I take care of myself physically is a struggle for a lot of people. It's a struggle for me. But when I thought of that, I really thought of physical, like my workouts, my exercise, and trying to be consistent about it so that I can stay strong for as long as possible, and so that I can do all the things that I love doing, which bring me happiness and peace every day. So I think like actually running and lifting weights, and so that I can ski, so that I can be outside and garden. I have all kinds of projects I do outside all spring and summer, especially. And so I can do the things that I love with the people that I love. How's that?
Love it. Building on that one. And this one is interesting because I see raging as something that is not like a wildfire, not out of control and on its own. But the question is, how are you strong as a raging fire?
I have a burning desire for justice. Every day, all day. My show is called Stand Up because I've been standing up to bullies my whole life, and I align myself with other people who do. There's a certain anger that fuels my pursuit of justice, and it always will. And I will probably always fight as a result of it. Maybe not. Maybe something will change. But to me, injustice gets me out of bed. And every day I work to find as many ways as I can to get justice for those who have not felt it, not received it. And it's not about punishing people who have done the wrong thing. It's about overcoming the obstacles that get put in our ways. And I'm thinking about, like the Voting Rights Act and how long it took and how many people died to get there, the civil rights movement, and how it's been gutted, and how we need to fight back, and how we need to stand up for people who need our help. Like, to me, that's that every day motivated by an anger that I have burning inside of me for the injustices I've seen done to people I care about, and even to myself and my family in my local community. There are some pretty horrible things that were done to us as a result of my activism, and I have not forgotten those things or those people.
Beautiful answer. And our final question, how are you as mysterious as the dark side of the moon?
I am not.
I like it. That's fair. That's
almost
fair.
nothing mysterious about me at all. No one has ever used the word mysterious to describe me. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very public with my life and my adversities that I've tried. Like, there's nothing mysterious. What you see is what you get. There's nothing. So I can't relate to that at all. Nor do I think do I want to. I don't want to be mysterious. I don't need to keep you guessing about anything in any way. Not as a romantic partner, not as an audience member, not as a person walking down the street. That's fine for somebody else. It might make them more interesting. For me, I don't think I can. I'm not brave enough to be mysterious.
I love it. Brave enough to be the first to say you're not mysterious too, in all of the interviews. I love it. Yeah. And I guess that wasn't really my final question. The final real question, because this has been really fun, and thank you for joining me. I really appreciate having you on, and I really hope to talk to you again more and continue growing this relationship, because I'm having a great time today. You've added, again, like everyone else, you've added something amazing to this discussion. And Pete, authenticity is, Laura just said it in our chat, authenticity is what it comes down to. Being genuine, and that's who you're coming across as. That's who you are. And that's what your story has invoked this whole time, is an authentic person who just wants to live a life they can be proud of and who they are. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming and telling me about your life.
Really kind and generous of you to say all that. It means a lot to me. I really am grateful for your words and sentiments.
And so, to build on that, is one, you're welcome. And is two, where can people support you and find you, and shamelessly plug and promote yourself, and how people can support your work?
So I host a podcast every day. You can get it wherever you get podcasts. It's called Stand Up with Pete Dominick. And I do a news segment, which is really like sometimes 30, 40 minutes covering the news with clips. And then I interview one person almost every day, sometimes two people, usually like the smartest people I can find. And we talk about the issues that matter most. It's like NPR with a heartbeat, I always say. Radio with personality. But I also accidentally created a community, partly as a result of leaving corporate media and or partly as a result of the pandemic. When we were all locked down, we started using Zoom, and I started hosting a hangout. And to me, like every Thursday night at 8 p.m., people come and hang out on Zoom, and I'm a moderator and a host. That's my job. So I'm really good at I do crowd work with audience. And so every Thursday at 8 p.m., we do sometimes 3 hours, Nick. 50 to 80 people come, very diverse group, but we're all kind of, in the same milieu, if you will, but we're all anti-fascist, if you will. But the bottom line is we have fun. We have a really fun, a lot of laughs, and people should stop by just for the Thursday night hangout and experience that, because it's amazing.
I love that. Apologies in the background for the piano that's now going off. It's baby time and hanging out with, I'm a stay-at-home dad and stay-at-home uncle, I guess, and help and support.
I thought they were playing me out, which is totally.
I don't actually have outro music. I have my intro music, but I haven't put any outro music in yet. And the intro music is actually music that I wrote and composed when I was in college,
cool.
And had recorded. So, and so we will talk again soon, Pete. This has been so much fun. again, everyone, this has been Intelligent Masculinity here on Sick of This Shit Publications. I'm Nick Paro, not your dad, joined by comedian, girl dad, advocate, and now friend Pete Dominick for our incredible 20th episode of the Intelligent Masculinity series so far. And we've got tons coming up too. We've got some incredible ones coming up too. So thanks, Pete. Thanks for all your time. And as I say to everyone in the audience at the end of all of our shows, let's stop being sick of this shit and let's start doing this shit. I'll see you again soon. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, everyone.